straight pride. Man, woman, child, yeah, straight pride. Man, woman, child. I'm talking about nation building, I'm talking about race.
Straight black pride, black family. This is a combined effort of the straight black pride movement and African Unification in an effort to help brothers and sisters around the world, and particularly in the United States of America, understand the importance of us educating our children and the danger that our children are facing in these institutions in this country where people other than black people, and unfortunately some people with black skin but whose minds are not as black as they should be, are giving our children the kind of misinformation and misguidance that can only lead to disaster. And as opposed to doing it in the form of a lecture, we decided to come together and tell real accounts from real people of the things that are happening to our children in this miseducation system in the United States of America. So, to begin with, I'd like to read real accounts from one of the most phenomenal instructors and educators of African youth that I've ever met in my life. This brother did not want to be identified because, of course, we understand the kind of environment that we're in now, but he did want to give his accounting of what he has witnessed being an educator throughout this country. These are his words. I was an administrator at an elementary public charter school in Washington, D.C. The school had slightly over 100 students, pre-kindergarten to 5th grade. My focus was to improve parent participation as a parent liaison. I had an office away from most of the children where I spent time contacting parents and organizing school events. About a week into school, I noticed a lot of young boys were running out of the kindergarten class to come to my room. I had a lot of books and games in my office, so I assumed they were coming there to enjoy those. But when I walked the students back to their class, I felt something was wrong with the class. I decided to stay and observe. The teacher would, now this is a black male teacher, would constantly yell at the black boys, and when they got in trouble, he would make them put their hand in his back pocket and walk around with him. I was disgusted and immediately went upstairs to report it to the executive director. When I explained what I saw, the executive director said I was blowing things out of proportion, and that was because I'm Afrocentric, and because I'm Afrocentric, I'm automatically homophobic. She said I was against the teacher because he was a homosexual. So now we know that it's a black male homosexual teacher. Whenever the boys get in trouble or are talking out of turn, he makes them put their hand in his back pocket and walk around the classroom. When I told her that as a mandated reporter that I needed to report this, she said she would speak to him about it, so it wasn't necessary for me to report it. Later that day, I confronted the teacher in the parking lot. I told him that that punishment for children was unacceptable and that they should not be forced to have their hands on his butt. He got in his car and left. The next day, he reported me to the executive director. He said that I threatened him. Now, I'm not going to say whether or not I think it's true or not, but it's his word against his, right? Mm-hmm. But if I saw some brothers with their hands, telling children to walk around with their hands in their pockets, right, I probably would threaten them. But anyway, the executive director took his side. I told her that since it was just me and him in the parking lot, that it was his word against mine. A few days later, another young boy came to my office from the same class, complaining about the same thing. And I went to the executive director's office and demanded that she come to the classroom to fix this problem. She said she would take the child back to the classroom and that I had to go back to my office and do my job. So he's getting scolded now. After school, I approached the mother of one of the children that had complained about the man doing this to him. And she was with 3 men who all appeared to be flaming homosexuals. So the mother of the child that's going through this in the class and complaining, she's coming to the school with 3 homosexuals to pick up her son. I told her what occurred and she gave me a look, but really didn't say anything when I was explaining. I asked her how she would like to handle this and she replied to me, "I got this." I was called to the executive director's office because apparently the teacher overheard us and said I was stirring up trouble. I told the executive director, as parent liaison, my job is to speak to the parents about what occurs in class. The executive director attempted to make me feel my job was in jeopardy, but she couldn't point as to why. A couple of weeks later, in the after-school program, it was reported that some of the boys from the class, the same class where this was going on, were giving each other oral sex under the bleachers. I was disgusted and knew that if the teacher had been held accountable and the children were properly supervised, that this would never have occurred. That teacher was promoted to administration, and the executive director made my job there a living hell, so that I had to resign, and the position of parent liaison was completely terminated. From my years of study and activism in the black community, one of the things I've noticed is that, particularly as it relates to this homosexual white sex assault, everyday people are being impacted, and everyday people's children are being impacted. However, we view the incidents that occur as outlandish incidents that are happening to us personally. Because we are not discussing the white sex assault, because it is a stigma on anybody who speaks out and says anything against homosexuality or the homosexual agenda or even pedophilia at this point, we become afraid to speak out and talk to one another about the outlandish things we see happening. So each of us are suffering incredible assaults of homosexuality on us and our children on a daily basis. But we are not discussing them to understand that it is not an individual situation that we're facing. It is a collective assault where the African personality, the black personality, black culture is being undermined. The psychology of the black mind is being undermined. The very idea that the black man is for the black woman and that the black woman is for the black man is being so undermined that when and if we don't necessarily believe that two men should be together, we still don't believe a black man should be with a black woman. So it becomes more acceptable for a black man to be with a white female or an Asian female or a Hispanic female or any female that is not a black woman, and vice versa. It has only been in the last 20 years that I've seen it become normal in black communities for black women to think it acceptable to date, marry, or be in intimate relationships with men who are not black. And so now, on a regular basis, we see black women dating and in intimate relationships with white males, Hispanics, Asians, and anybody that will lay down with her. And so we see that the full fabric of the black community is being destroyed. And it's getting even deeper now because it's going to the level on the elementary grade school level, where our children are being indoctrinated with the idea that genocide is good for black people. The idea that black men and black women should not come together and produce families like we've done for millenniums. That it consists of a strong black man and a strong black woman in committed relationships building strong black families. And as a result, the complete fabric of the black community is falling apart. Our whole racial context is falling apart. And the basic identity of being black, of being African, and loving oneself, that concept is almost completely void in young people from 5 years old to 15. If you ask them, are they proud to be black? They don't even want to identify with being black, much less proud to be black. If you ask them, are they proud to be African, much less, they don't even want to identify with Africa and can't make the relationship between being black and being African and having self-respect and having dignity. And much of this is occurring by the miseducation they're getting in preschool, in the school system that's destroying their minds. So brothers and sisters, it is our responsibility to take our children out teeth of their enemies who are trying to ensure that our children can't compete with their children, and to teach our children what they need to know to be competitive in the 21st century. I want to thank you for listening. We appreciate you taking the time to consider what we have to say to you, and we're asking you, do the right thing, be responsible, pull your children out of these sick environments of this school system and start healthy, straight, black, proud environments to educate your African black children for the 21st century. Straight black pride, brothers and sisters. Straight black pride, brothers and sisters. It's the irritated genius Southeast here on Howard University's campus on Georgia Avenue in Northwest Washington, D.C. Very soon, we're going to be coming to the campus and interviewing the students on the explosion of homosexuality and white sex on this campus. Stay tuned, because you're going to be very surprised, maybe even shocked at what you hear and find out about this crisis situation. Straight Black Pride.